Ave cohort. It is Saturday, which means that it is time for Pilum Teaches DCS. We're going to be spending some time in a grand old office here today. I'm going to be working with the F-15E Strike Eagle. We're going to be going through startup, talking about the pack system, navigation, setting waypoints, making use of the radar in both air-to-air and air-to-ground modes, dropping some dumb weapons off the jet and some slightly smarter ones off the jet, and using the nav FLIR as we get on into the later portions of the mission. So for now, let's go ahead and get those kneeboards ready, get your pencils in hand, get your questions ready to type there on the keyboard as we come up, and we will get right to it. Okay, so we're going to start as we usually do here. We have our office in hand. We're currently paused, and as you can see, the weather is miserable. A lot of dense cloud cover, kind of hard to spot things with a laser, so it's going to be a good time there for us. We are carrying kind of a 1980s Cold War type loadout, which means that we don't have access to AMRAAM at the moment. Fairly fictional. I could put them on the jet right now if I wanted to, as I haven't configured that in the mission, but for our purposes is what we're doing today. So, starting from our left wing here and working inward, we have a pair of AIM-9M sidewinders on the rail and a fuel tank. On our CFT, we are carrying two AIM-7M Sparrows. We, of course, have the nav FLIR, or the targeting pod here, the lantern. We have a GPU-10 on the center line, the nav FLIR, forward-looking infrared, and terrain-following radar suite. We have three Mark 82s, another fuel tank, and more sidewinders. We do have chocks on the jet here at the moment. We're painted in a nice, lovely 80s style green camouflage. So let's go ahead and get into the jet. And before I unpause it and get going, we'll take a quick walk around the cockpit. Starting from the left and aftmost quadrant and working our way forward, the relevant things that we'll be looking at and using are the sensor control panel, which controls our radar, INS alignment, JTIDs when and if we finally get that installed on the aircraft, radar altimeter, nav FLIR initial settings, terrain following radar settings. Outboard of that, we have the IFF controls and microphone controls and oral tone controls. You also on the wall have the INF antenna selector switch. Generally, we just leave that in both and not worry about it, but you know, if that happens, it happens. Also on this wall, we have an emergency air refueling door, which only opens. So if you have to use the emergency setting to try and refuel the aircraft, you pop that thing open, hit the switch, the door falls open, it will stay open. Forward to the sensor panel, we have the external lights. All of the light controls options are there. Your flash settings, your navigation lights, your formation lights, anti-collision lights, all of those controls there in that switch. Forward to that is the throttle quadrant. We have a lot of switches, dials, buttons, and everything else on that quadrant. It's a modern HOTAS arrangement. Inboard, we have the ejection seat safety arm lever. Outboard, we have our seat adjustment. We have a fly-up enable switch, which is tied to the terrain following radar system. And we have the NCTR, or non-cooperative target switch, which will enable that particular system for the aircraft, which will allow us to use our radar to identify, via its cross-section, what aircraft we're looking at as long as it's nose on to us. I'll be demonstrating some of that here later on. VMAX switch cover is also on the outboard wall. Forward of the throttle quadrant, we have our fuel control panel. This controls dumpings, how to use the conformal tanks for emergency use. External tanks, again, which one do we use first, wing center or conformal tank? As far as where is it going to drain from first. Dump control switches, pump switches, Forward to that, we have a miscellaneous panel which has our taxi light, landing light, anti-skid brake system, inlet control ramps, and roll ratio switch. Forward of the throttle, we have the SAS system and the terrain following coupled system. One of the switches that'll need to be on in order to utilize the terrain following radar to its fullness. And then forward of that, we have the nuclear consent switch. Up front, we have the emergency hook, which works nowhere on any of the runways that we've got in the game, as none of them are set up. But if there were land-based arresting hook stuff present somewhere, you could use that to try and halt the aircraft. You have an emergency landing gear handle, the regular landing gear handle up and down, pitch ratio controls, master arm, armament selector switch, and jettison. We have our steam gauges as backups, which include the vertical speed, angle of attack, airspeed in knots, another ADI, altimeter, emergency jettison button. There's a caution about that we'll talk about later on. We have our AMAD left-right engine fire warning panel, our MFDs. There are 3 of them. 2 of them are MPDs, which are just multi-purpose displays. The center one here is an MPCD, which is a multi-purpose color display. The UFC, or up-front console, is our primary means of communicating with the aircraft's computer. Clock, pressure altitude, fuel quantity and bingo selector, presumably a DTC case where one day the F-15C might, or F-15E rather, might have a DTC available, or a data cartridge. Warning lights, jet fuel starter, and the brake hold. 2 settings for the jet fuel starters. You got 2 charges to be able to start your engines. Moving through to the right-hand panel in the front seat, we have the oxygen panel, the engine control master panel, and we have other things here like the environmental control system. It's going to be things like our pitot heat, engine heat, anti-fog, air conditioning. All of those things are found on this panel here. Blocking some of that panel is the canopy control knob. We also have an emergency vent. We need it to vent smoke out of the cockpit, that kind of thing. It'll just purge the air inside the canopy for us. I believe moving the switch is modeled, but I don't think anything else in it is at the moment. After the air conditioning panel, we have the interior lights panel, which controls our console lights, UFC lights, day-night display general setup, storm flood lights, caution warning lights, start lights, that kind of thing. And that rounds out the cockpit, at least for the front seat. We can get to the back seat here in just a couple minutes, but for now, let's go ahead and go through startup. So we're going to go ahead and unpause. Got the rain coming down. I'm going to go and close the canopy. All right, step 1, turn on both engine master control switches and the JFS starter switch. Turn on the generators, left and right for both engines. Pull the JFS starter handle. At this time, while it is starting up, I do like to go ahead and start setting other things like get the oxygen switch because I'm right here. Bring my bingo up because I'm right here. Flip the arming handle down because I'm right here. On the throttle, there are 2 finger lifts. These are the igniters for the left and right engine. I'm going to go ahead and just pull one of them here. We hear it winding up. Go ahead and dial my radios up. Volume control knobs are there. UFC and HUD brightness knobs are here. And I am going to go ahead and preemptively dial up the video brightness and contrast there as well. Down here on this engine control panel where we can see what our RPM and fuel flow is right now, we see that we're hovering about 26, 27% engine thrust. That means that we're ready for ignite. So we're going to go ahead and advance the right throttle to idle. It will take it a moment or two to go ahead and start spooling up. And again, while it's doing that, I'm usually going through other things like flipping on all of the cast switches, setting my taxi light, setting the inlet ramps to auto, turn on the NCTR, turn on my external lights by 1 tick, turn on my microphone, put the terrain following radar in standby, radar altimeter into on, radar to standby, INS to store, nav FLIR to standby.
Low altitude, bingo, fuel, bingo, fuel.
And since I have the INS in stored alignment heading mode right now, it is going ahead and start doing that. We see that in the HUD in the bottom right hand corner where it says SH for stored heading, no taxi. It's in process right now doing that. Now we're going to repeat the process for the left engine. We're just going to pull up on the finger tab. We're going to hear it start cranking. I usually set the parking brake here, and at this time, pull the chocks off the jet.
Remove the wheel chocks. Copy. Wheel chocks are now removed.
Also turn on our MPDs and MPCD. And we'll talk about setting those up here in just a moment. We're at 26%, so let's go ahead and light off the other engine. I'm going to go ahead and use these little rotators to go ahead and select channel 1 for both radios. And there is a guard receiver channel manual key. The little stars indicate what is currently selected. So both our UHF on the left and VHF radios on the right are selected in manual mode. Make sure the air conditioning is set to automatic. Mute the microphone for a sneeze. All of our warning and caution lights are out, which is good. That's what we want. Stored heading is now okay. So we will go ahead and take this and very quickly move it all the way to the nav position. If we did not have access to stored heading alignment, we would need to do a ground alignment, in which case instead of moving this to store, you would move it to align GC. It would say GC, no taxi, and then slowly advance until it says that it's okay. All right, we're going to briefly jump into the back seat of the cockpit here, because there are a few things that you will need to do if you are not flying with a Wizzo yourself. Morning, Chief. And again, these are all things that I tend to do during startup. And if you get really quick about it, you can usually have the back seat completely configured before the first engine's turned over and provide power to the jet. I do like making sure the oxygen is on, so that way, just in case this person in the back seat doesn't pass out. Down here after the right control unit, we'll need to turn on ICS, the RWR, and the EWWS system. After this the twos panel, there is your countermeasures control panel. I usually set this to semi-auto. Are in the ejector seat. Behind the left-hand control unit, we have the targeting pod power switch, the laser power switch, and the RWR ICS switch that all need to be turned on, especially since we're going to be using the laser today. We want to make sure that that's activated. I usually go the extra mile in turning on the displays here in the back seat, which includes 2 MPDs left and right and 2 MPCDs left and right. And these are controlled 2 at a time, so these 2 over here are controlled by the left-hand control unit. These 2 over here on the right are controlled by the right-hand control unit. However, for all purposes at this point in the game, I could go back to the front seat and have full access to everything here on the jet, which is why there's not an artificial intelligence like Jester for this aircraft, at least at the moment. To answer your question there, Chief, we have coffee this morning. Just a splash of cream, a little bit of blueberry flavor. St. Gaffinicus's mystical bean elixir. All right, we are not quite finished with our setup here before we're ready to taxi and start flying and doing things. First thing we're going to do is there's several menu modes for your UFC. It can be accessed by tapping the menu key. This is usually the main screen that I've got up here, and moving from top to bottom and left to right, we have the low altitude warning system, TACAN status, IFF status, terrain following radar standby, navigation steer point, autopilot status. I forget what A4E4 here is. I think that's also, yeah, that's more IFF controls. And the nav FLIR status, where you can change its gain level, set it to like look and turn, make some adjustments to the nav FLIR system. I don't like Betty telling me when I'm 250 feet up because that's entirely too high, so we'll have her warn me when I'm 75 feet off the ground. But the big one that we need to make sure that we have set on here is the IFF. So let's go ahead and turn this on here to the IFF page. We have modes 1, 2, and 3 and the civilian mode. At the moment, none of those are on. So we can go ahead and set these up. You can put whatever channels in there that you like. You can even leave them as 0. The important part is that they have the little star next to them to make sure that they are on. And when we go back to the main menu page, the IFF now shows that we have channels 1, 2, 3, civilian, and 4 all active. I mentioned earlier that we talk about these MPD displays. We can program those to allow up to 3 pages to be rapidly released and looked at through using the HOTAS without having to push buttons to navigate through everything. We could do that by entering the program mode by tapping program and making sure that it's boxed in, and then select which 3 items you want in order of appearance to use. Usually for my left MPD, I go with air-to-air radar, air-to-ground radar, and the targeting pod, so this is my sensor panel. On my right-hand panel, I will typically go with 2s, and if I'm carrying smart weapons or have the ability to carry smart weapons will be my second one, but you'll notice that it's not here. We have to go to menu 2. Smart weapons. In the future, presumably when we get an update, we can also make sure that JTIDS is up there somewhere as well, as that will give us more situational awareness. For our purposes, though, we're going to go ahead and put the terrain following radar as an option number 2. You don't have to use 3, but you have the option for up to 3. And then on my center panel, I usually do the armament page, the HSI, and the TSO, or TSD rather. What this will allow me to do, as I come here to adjust controls, is that there's a castle switch that you can use to select your sensor of interest. So if I do castle left, the short presses, I can toggle between all 3 of my intended displays. If I do castle right, I can do that for the right. What is the tack in here? 95. All right, now these screens are kind of bright, so we're just going to go ahead and set it to nighttime mode right now. We do have night vision installed, and you can tell because there's all these little night vision filters that are over everything. And if I hit left shift in, by default, I have my monocle up. It is a little bit later in the evening for the start, so we will have some nighttime stuff here on the way in. Now we're going to talk about packs. I'm going to pause here again for a moment and zoom in here on the center screen, because PAX is the armament control system for the jet, and there are several things that are important for it. The first thing to understand is that some weapons do not self-identify what they are when they are wired up to the rail. So if I come here to air-to-ground, this is an initial start, so everything is showing up well, but curiously our left CFT is empty. Now, that's because I've got a couple of AIM-7s on it. Air-to-air missiles will self-identify what they are, but dumb bombs, like the GBUs, the Mark 80 series, things like that, those will not identify what they are, and you have to tell PAX what's there. We do that by going under the air-to-ground load, and we have this screen. You can select a pylon, step through, find the weapon you're looking for. Like if I wanted to replace this GBU-10, or if this GBU-10 was blank because I just rearmed and it blanked everything out, I would select GBU-10, select the pylon, and then it would move the GBU-10 up to that pylon. There's a lot of different weapons that are listed here, some of which can be carried on the aircraft, others cannot. Including things like the AGM-130. We'll hit menu to go back, and then we're here, we can look at stuff again. The next thing I like to do is set up a combat jettison. In this case, we are carrying bombs and fuel. Down here in the bottom, we have 1 and 2, which indicates which press of the button we're setting things up for. On the left-hand side, we say whether we want to eject the entire rack, the store on the pylon, or the pylon itself. In this case, I just want to eject the stores, and the first up will be the fuel tanks. So we select our fuel tanks, we hit enter. We hit button 2. Next thing I want to get rid of is all my bombs, just in case. Hit enter. Now, what does that do for us? First off, this emergency jet button will put everything off the aircraft. And when I say everything off the aircraft, I mean practically everything off the aircraft. It's going to eject this entire pylon, which if you've got self-defense weapons on board, those are gone. The fuel pylon, gone. Anything on board the CFTs, gone. The nav flare and targeting pods will stay. Those are hard bolted to the jet, and those aren't leaving. Centerline pylon, gone. Anything you're carrying on those pylons will be jettisoned if you push the eject button, which is why we're setting up a combat jettison, so that if we need to, we can come over here, right-click the selector to combat jettison, push the jettison button the first time, it's going to get rid of the fuel tanks. We push it the second time, it's going to get rid of the bombs. Okay, now, the other thing that you may or may not have noticed is that we have steer point B up. Steer point B waypoint 1 is wherever you aligned your jet. So you always have a waypoint that will tell you where to go home. You can select steer point B, you can then just start cruising out to where you need to go. It's all good. But I don't have any other waypoints assigned, and we got some targets to kill. Main among them that we're going to probably be hitting first is this SAM site. So let's go ahead and set up a waypoint for it. We'll just use the circle as a reference. We're going to hold down left alt, we're going to left click once, get our coordinate system up here. We're going to click on steer point B's button. And at this point, it's like, okay, well, there's steer point B, there's all that information, but we don't want that. We want an empty waypoint. So we're going to go ahead and hit 1A, click where it says steer point B, and bam, now I'm looking at waypoint 1A. You can tell it's a blank waypoint because it's all zeroed out. And what we're going to be using is lat-long decimal minutes, because we have 3-digit precision in the F-15E. So we're just going to put that in as it appears. We hit Shift 2, which puts in a north and tells it, hey, I'm putting in coordinates. 53, 26, 689. Tap north and put our easting in. Shift 6 for east. Now it's only 2 digits here, so we need to put 3. So it's 011 39 859. Tap east. And we have an elevation of 132 feet. This waypoint is now set, but we can take one step further with it and make this a combat waypoint where we're going to get drop information, all without having to designate by pushing a button or using a targeting pod or aligning things with the radar. And we can do this by going 1A decimal, clicking steer point 1A. Oh, actually I think 1 decimal is fine. 1 decimal A. What this will do now is when I select this waypoint, it will, in air-to-ground master mode, set everything up to drop bombs where that waypoint is. At that point, you can even use it to assign smart weapons while you're still sitting on the ground at home. So you can do all of your configuring, pre-program your weapons and ordnance, and then just go fly yourself into parameters and let them go. Steer point 2. Steer point 2, we're going to worry about this bunker objective that's up here. And this one we won't make a combat waypoint, so we're just going to go ahead and type that one in. Remember how to do that. 5319856 north. 01131 east. 148 feet. Bippity boop. Now you can even do this as I pause the server again. You can even do this in a multiplayer game by using that route that we showed earlier and using, well, some of you kids call it hashtag. I've always known it as the pound sign, but pound sign T, lowercase t, as the name of any given waypoint, and that will interact with the jet and tell it, I want that waypoint to be a target waypoint. That way you can set those things up in the mission editor, or you can set those things up using the route planner in multiplayer and save it for your next spawn. We talked a lot about the systems on board the jet so far, so let's go ahead and actually roll her up and get going and put some warheads and foreheads, as it were. Do some fun stuff. First, we're going to go ahead and select ourselves for waypoint 1 decimal A. That steer point is up. We're in navigation master mode, but if I go to air to ground, I don't have any weapons selected. Just kidding. So we go to air to ground, our packs page, and we have up to 4 programs to assign. Program 1, I want to drop Mark 82s. I want to drop them in auto mode, ripple single, nose tail fusing, quantity of 1, and this interval down here, in the F4 we deal with seconds and milliseconds. In a lot of the more modern Air Force jets, it's in feet. So if I was rippling more than 1 bomb, I would want to put a quantity here. Let's make sure we actually kill this SA-2 site in the first pass, so we're going to go ahead and select 150 feet worth of bomb and 2 bombs. Program 2, we're going to go ahead and set up for our GBU-10, auto, ripple single, nose tail, quantity 1, interval 0, because I really only want to get rid of 1 bomb. We do have 2 other programs that would be available, but I have no other weapons that need configuring. Now, since we have the combat waypoint up, we do have our pipper already set up for the bombs and a bomb fall line already in line with the target. It will do some other things for us too, which are very neat, and we'll talk about those in a minute. No, our parking brakes on. Go ahead and get our flaps set. Nose wheel steering is automatically engaged, so you don't have to worry about hitting a button or anything for that, at least to get it going. If you do press the nose wheel steering button, it is a high gain setting, which will allow the F-15 to almost turn within its own wingspan. And yes, I heard you're absolutely right. It is the 4th of July Down with Tyranny Pay Razbam episode. Answer your damn court order, ED. You've got the money, make it happen. Sell off one of Nick Gray's P-40s if you need to. Always pay your artists, don't pay them in exposure. Exposure kills people. Sounds like we do have some friends up and about. I may not need the whole runway, but I'm going to take the whole runway because we're here. Just go ahead and keep taxiing all the way down. And we are carrying 2 Sparrows on the left CFT and 3 Mark 82s on the right CFT. I could carry up to 6 on a CFT. As the dumb weapons, you can actually make use of all the pylons, but that would make us very right side heavy. So for balance's sake, I'm not doing that. Which does mean fewer bombs. But thanks to our precision and our accuracy, afforded to us by this fantastic system, we should be in good shape. Alright, let's go ahead and take off into the soup. Brakes released. And we're up. Gear and flaps. Ease off the power here a little bit. All the usual HUD markers are up on display there. We have our heading compass and tape across the top. We have a tick mark for our current waypoint. At the moment, because we're in an air-to-ground master mode, we have the bomb fall line and the bomb pipper. Pitch ladder, altitude, airspeed, angle of attack, G-load, Mach number, waypoint selected in the bottom right-hand corner with distance to target, and time to release. I'm going to go ahead and put the autopilot on here for a moment and set us up for a 25,000 put AP hold. A lot of soup to climb through. I'm going to tap the autopilot here to turn it off. Now on the right-hand screen earlier, we set it up for 2s, which is our combination RWR situational awareness page, heading display, TACAN display, chaff and flare counters. There's a lot of information on the 2s page. Something very important is to try not to load too many negative G's on the jet. as you could fuel start the engines and shut them down, which is fun for no one. I'll put the AP back on. And we'll talk for a moment about that twos page. Down here in the lower left and right corners, you have the TACAN range and bearing. Bearing 246. Range of 12.9 miles in opening. You can see the little triangle there pointing towards the TACAN on the aft end of the aircraft. Target 1 decimal is 48 miles away. And a bearing is 064. You can see the arrow pointing to that. And it's estimating at our current speed that we'll get there in about 8 minutes.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 0D2 460 at 13,000 cold.
I'm going to make the radar here on the left the soy. You can tell which page is soy because it'll have these little tick marks on the bottom. We have our altimeter, the current radar sweep pattern. Up here is the range for where the current cursor is at. If I push the cursor forward, it goes for the range. Pull it backwards, shorter range, as far as where it's looking.
Uzi 1, Overlord.
And what its minimum and maximum altitude scales in thousands of feet is currently scanning. So at about right here, we can scan up to 28,000 feet or up to negative 5,000 feet. So basically from the ground all the way up at a range of 40 miles. If we move that heading bug all the way to the right, we can shorten our scan, which results in faster bar scans back and forth. We push it all the way to the top, we can extend the range up to 160 miles. And if we pull it all the way down, we can reduce the range to practically right off the nose of the aircraft. Typically, when I'm just scanning or cruising, I will leave it in an 80-mile search. Now, we are about 39 miles away, so we're going to go ahead and switch to the air-to-ground mode, and we'll talk about the air-to-ground radar. I'm going to turn it on here. Which again, we just make it the soy, and now the radar is in underground mode. We'll extend its range to 40 miles. Let's set that to daytime here for a moment. And we're going to go ahead and pause. We zip in here to look at the air-to-ground screen. Down here at the bottom, it indicates what exactly we're looking for, what radar modes are available. We can toggle things over from this like ground map scan to a ground moving target, to something a little more precise, but what we're going to be using it for today is to scan an area and conduct an attack without being able to see it through all this cloud cover. Now, because we already have a target waypoint up, we can see that the designate square here is already up and active. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit 1 decimal. And we're going to hit this button here over SP. So that tells me what waypoint I'm looking at. We are in map mode. And here, this middle, we can change how big of an area we are scanning in nautical miles. 0.67 nautical miles is as tight as you're going to be able to get. And then when I hit designate to try and look at that spot, it tells me I'm in a blind spot. There's a 20-degree cone in the forward portion of the aircraft that you can't detect those things on. So if you're going to be making this kind of attack, you're going to need to offset a little bit, and ideally at the halfway point, and then designate. And we can see at this range, it's going to take 26 seconds to figure things out. Our radar is still in standby mode. It's not actually going to do it. Let's turn the actual radar on. It's counting down, so it's getting our information. Three, two, one, boop. And I'm going to go and pause again. So this is the magic of the F-15E. This is power, this is strength, this is being able to get in and do all kinds of hinky BS to get the job done. This is not an image that has been captured with a targeting pod. This is an image that is generated by radar returns. And we can get some very crisp resolution here to figure out what we're looking at. There's a lot of information that's right here. This image can be frozen, either by the Wizzo or the pilot, whoever's using the radar at the time. It can be updated, and you can see the next update. I'm paused now, so it's not counting down. But the next update is in 20 seconds. And we've got a clear compound with some kind of a paved road setup and a bunch of little circles with things in it. Like, using a little bit of common sense, we can kind of go with, yeah, there's a truck park over here. There's some buildings and things through here. But the meat and potatoes of what it is we're looking at are going to be things like these little, possibly towers, possibly other vehicles. But everything in these little pits are missile launchers. And we've also got this bright kind of line that crosses through the center of this. This is indicative of a radar system. So while you can't necessarily go with, oh, I can throw a harm at that, because you can't carry harms on this variant of the F-15E. It's just not a thing that the Air Force was doing with that. Other Air Forces wanted that capability and made that work. But for our purposes, using our radar, generating this radar image, this is a louder radar return, and the brightest point in the center of that line is the transmitter, regardless of what it is. Now, I can't tell what it is down there exactly from here, but again, a little bit of common sense. One, I know I built it. I know it's an SA2 site that I'm looking at, but this would be, to me, if I was looking at this with fresh eyes, like if Nixon threw together a mission, or Ihort threw together a mission, or Chief Whittle mission, and this was what I was looking at, intuitively I would understand that this is either an SA2 or an SA3 site, just by the general layout, as long as it's following a normal pattern. We can also confirm that by looking at twos, because we know down here at the bottom that we are nose slightly left of the target. The radar is looking to the right. Nose slightly left of the target. This is off to the right. So this is a fan song and flat face system pointed in our general direction. Now, because we're doing this and it's training and teaching time, I can even come down here and, yeah, you can see that for every radar. That's how I managed to look at a site and go, yeah, that's where the SA-8 is. But send a GBU-38 at it. All without ever having seen it. The F-15E is, in fact, as the kids say, based. But yeah, this is about the orientation of what we're looking at relative to our current aircraft position. And as I come down here with the Satellite of God image, we can see that we've got the radar reflections from these two systems. They're parked up on this hill. We can see all of the different trucks. See the missiles. See these buildings. The revetments. Again, this is the full color satellite type image. Radar return. I'm going to go and unpause. And if I use my left multifunction switch from the front seat, I can freeze this image. Because at this point, I could go back and go, I really need my air-to-air radar again. But the Wizzo could take control of this screen with the freeze and use this screen to designate targets. As many as they would like. they could use mark points, because you can set this to mark point and create up to 9 mark points in a given area. Map mode will resume the search and scan on that one. Update will update a given waypoint already. TGT is target mode. Q will cue all the sensors to point in that direction. It knows we're here, as it is now looking at us, and we're 25 miles away. So we're going to go ahead and roll over to put positive G on the aircraft. And come down off our perch. Master arm is on.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 052 417 at 14,000 knots.
We do have some other friends that are up, so we may need to deal with them first.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 093 440 at 13,000 knots.
First, I want to break contact with that SAM site, and we're going to go air-to-air master mode. Okay. Check in with the AWACS here.
Overlord 1-1, Uzi 1, request bogey dope. Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 115 416 at 14,000 knots.
That's him. He is rear aspect to us at the moment. $20-ish or so miles away. That one's much closer. He's 15 miles.
Bra 113 435 at 13,000 knots.
Kind of waiting on him to turn around. The SA-2 fired, but not concerned. $11 miles.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 145 450 at
That is a MiG-19.
knots.
And we know that because I used the NCTR and I hit coolie switch right. Coolie switch right, if the NCTR is on, will activate that system. Fox 1, and attempt to identify the aircraft. It only works in a head-on aspect.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 130 460 at 15,000 knots. Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1.
Kiss, kiss, boom, boom. Down he goes.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 149 445 at 17,000 knots.
2 fired again.
Low altitude. Pull up. Low altitude.
Uzi 1, Overlord
Low
1-1,
altitude.
Bra
Low altitude.
428 at 13,000.
We do apparently have a friend back there,
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1
so we'll just go ahead and open up the distance between us there.
at 2,000.
We have 24,000 pounds of fuel, so the fact that we're burning 162,000 pounds an hour right now is of little consequence here for us, at least for now. Just about to say I think he gave up, but alas, not yet. Let's make sure that our radar is scanning proper elevations. It's going to be a lot less helpful to us.
Warning, fuel low. Warning, fuel low.
Feed tank's a little low, so I backed off the power.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 089-417 at 14,000 cold. Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 109-450 at 13,000 cold.
Our friend the SA2 is back. Just going to try and dip down a little bit and reset his lock to launch. Down under 22,000. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the fuel tanks.
Pull up, pull up, pull up, pull up.
No, thank you, Mr. SA2. Alright, this guy's also a MiG-19. It's probably the wingman of the first one we shot down. Cruise into some good no escape zone here for the missile, and box 1. Crank off to the left here a little defensively. Buy more time against that SA2 if he shoots at us again.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 128-4
Come on, Mr. Sparrow.
at 15,000
Good job.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, merged.
Pull up, pull up, pull up, pull up.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 112-425 at 14,000 knots.
That is a MiG-23 though. Really getting in my way here with this whole dropping bombs on a SAM site thing.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 138-421 at 17,000 knots.
See how close we are to the SA2. 13 miles.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 124-430 at 13,000 cold. Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 125-435 at 14,000 knots.
That's the MiG-23. Countermeasures out. Just open up the range against that R-24 he flung at us. Let's see if we can't bait him again.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, merged.
Low
Pull up, pull up,
altitude.
pull up, pull up.
Low altitude.
Okay.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 120, 445 at 2,500.
That large circle there is an auto acquisition circle.
1-1, Bra 102, 435 at 14,000 knots.
AWACS, I really need you to tell me about the MiG.
1-1, Uzi 1, request bogey dope. Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 107, 430 at 14,000 knots. Overlord 1-1, Uzi 1, request bogey dope. Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 106, 435.
I do not go from merged to suddenly not having a MiG-23 right here. I'm not buying it.
Overlord 1-1, Uzi 1, request bogey dope.
That's the sun.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 102, 445 at 14,000.
Did he just shoot both missiles and go home? I mean, I'll take that option. I am by no means upset by that option. Okay. We'll proceed again with our attack until we have to deal with another fighter. 19's just popped up. Those are probably less of a factor, at least for this site. All right, we're on course. $15 miles. I usually start bumping the throttles up about here. So I'm going to be tossing these bombs onto that SAM site. I'm going to stay low and very fast. The faster we're going, the further we can toss the bomb. 10 miles. 730 knots. Usually I can do about a mile for every 100 nautical miles an hour we're traveling. Go ahead and do a shallower pop-up than usual. 6 miles. 5. Pickle buttons down. Bomb fall lines up. Steadying the aircraft so the computer can figure things out. Ripple pair. And we are out to the west. Just in time to watch our 2 bombs blast the hell out of that site. Alright, we've still got some gas. We're going to go ahead and spend some of it, and we're going to climb up to altitude. And we're going to go after waypoint 2, where we're going to identify a target with the air-to-ground radar. And while it is a little bit exploitive because I shouldn't be able to laser guide for a target through clouds, DCS will let us do it. I'm going to go ahead and do that here. We can call it dropping a GPS-guided weapon, but you know, whatever magic we got to say about it, I guess. One day when ED decides to actually model things like occlusion from clouds, hopefully for the AI as much as everybody else, this will definitely not be possible, but since we have eliminated the SAM site protecting the area, we can climb up above the height of the SA-2, or SA-8 rather, and deal with this other threat. Now, something else to keep in mind is that our laser, which the arm light is over here, does not arm above 25,000 feet. So we will need to be sub 25,000 feet in order to make use of the laser. Just going to go ahead and dive down a little bit. There we go. And it's a little hard to see because I've got the night vision filters on, but laser armed, we're in good conditions. Now we are 20 miles away from waypoint 2. We're going to go ahead and use our air-to-ground radar again because I've got clouds. Two, little dot. Turn mostly towards it. That's looking good. Let's go ahead and designate. Nope, that just built a mark point for us because we were in the wrong master mode. Designate. We're a lot closer to the target, so the radar returns come quicker for the updates. But we can see we've got a couple of objects there. Those are going to be the bunkers that we're looking at. So let's go ahead and target one of them here. It is designated. We're going to go up program 2 for our GBU. And I'm going to use the targeting pod here for a moment, just so that we can see that we are in auto laser mode. ALAS continuous is, we'll just keep firing the laser the entire way to the ground. Good for GBU 24s, less good for GBU 10. Well, we're just going to do a level drop and orbit left after release. About 50 seconds TREL. It's time to release. Pick the throttles up here just a little bit. See that timer ticking down a little quicker.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 090, 430 at 13,000 knots.
I have no idea where the flogger went off to, but we're not going to worry about it. Alright, 10 seconds, the bar's coming down, pickle button held. Bomb fall line falls through the flight path marker, and pickle. And our laser is flashing, which means that it is on. Just going to put it in a standard right here, left turn. And as we get a glimpse through the clouds, we can see that we're actually right on the target. Just adjust that a little bit. Should be good not to mask. And crunch. Left multifunction switch on the targeting pod will fire and cease fire on the laser. Now that said, we do know that there is another friend down there. So we will search for him using our reference waypoint with the air-to-ground radar, because we know the SA-8 is absolutely transmitting. And I've still got a Mark 82 left. Now I'm going to extend a little bit to make it easier for us to try and figure out where he is. I'll step back using the auto acquisition press button.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 1-2.
And we're going to change our range here to 4.5 miles. Or 4.7 miles, rather. Once again, we will set waypoint 2 as the point that I want to look at. Rather than target mode, we're going to go to map mode. And we know that the SA-8 is in the area, probably defending those bunkers, but we don't know where exactly. Go ahead and scan the area here. A little hard to see, so let's go ahead and step it down.
Bra 126, 422 at 14,000 knots.
Still a little hard to see. Let's go ahead and step it in a little closer. There he is. So now we can move our map center out this direction. Anytime you hit the designate button on the cursor while you're in map mode, we'll adjust the center. And let's get nice and tight on that spot. Now we are extremely close to that target, so I'm just going to go ahead and freeze that for a moment. And we're going to extend back out to the west, and as we come back around, I will unfreeze the radar so that we can get a new update. But as the radar dish down there at the target area turns, you will see the different reflections light up as your radar provides updates. So sometimes it might wink out of existence, you might need an extra update to figure out where it's at. But in this particular case, we've got a pretty good idea. Now we are going to be dropping one bomb, so that could pose a problem. We might not be able to get exactly where we want to go. "15 miles should be more than enough." Go ahead and unfreeze the sensor. That's blurry because we were hard turning while we were doing it. We'll just give it one more update. Or two. I'm pretty well satisfied with that being the midpoint, so let's go ahead and designate it. Go ahead and give it a little bit of gas here. We're well above his altitude ceiling to be able to hit us. Here comes the bomb fall line. Maintain nice, good parameters. And pickle. Bomb's off the jet. Now I am going to go ahead and select steer point Bravo. And since I've turned most of the way around there, let the plane fly itself back while we follow the bomb. We'll see how close we get. Do you see Mr. Osa? It's a trick question, it's a corpse. No, really though, that's where the Osa was hanging out. When we come down here and look in the area, we can see his fire. That bomb hit him dead center, and we dropped it from space without ever having seen him outside of his radar echo. Through clouds as an iron bomb. It's the kind of precision that you can get out of an advanced system, even for dumb bombs. And that's the kind of work that you should be doing with the F-15. High altitude, low altitude, whatever. Sun's on its way down. We're about 38 miles from home. We are back across the border. Still got a little bit of sunlight left to us though, but see if we can get some use out of nav flare. First things first, let's go ahead and snowplow our sensor. We do that by just holding the, is it auto acquisition forward? Yeah, auto acc forward hold. In the air-to-air mode, I did an auto-act forward tap, like a short press, and that brought up that big circle. If you do a long press, you can get a 40-mile bore sight search. But with the sensors up, auto-act forward long for the targeting pod will put it back in snowplow mode. And drop our radar's elevation here from staring up at the sky to looking forward where it's more useful. And let's go ahead and take it down to the deck.
Pull up, pull up, pull up, pull up.
Okay, so some of you might notice that we've got kind of this green haze. That's actually the nav FLIR system, which is controlled by these video options that we set earlier, and by the switch down here for the sensor. I've moved it into the on position so nav FLIR is on. The goal with it, when you're trying to actually use it for flying and everything else, is to have it act as a sort of augmented reality, where you can still look through it to see the things that are actually there when you've got the light and visibility to do so. Understandably, there is a little bit of parallax when you are super close to the jet. So, for example, if you are on the ground, you'll notice the runway stripes and everything else at night moving slightly off-center from where you actually see them. That's normal. And it's normal because the pod itself is slightly right and low compared to where you're sitting. So it's getting a view like this. And sometimes you might even see the nose of the aircraft in the image if it's not tuned quite right and bore sighted correctly, as compared to where you're sitting, higher and slightly left. That said, though, we're less concerned about things that are that close to the aircraft and out to probably 1/10 of a mile or so, those two converge in the right ways where things are roughly where they're supposed to be. It does utilize the entire front HUD glass, as you can see. We've got kind of this whole little edge around it. And very hard to tell. Turn the gain all the way down. It does work with the night vision optics, so you can use the two together to see where you're going. That way you can get a little bit of peripheral vision. We're more or less back over the base, so we're going to go ahead and go safe mode, navigation master mode, turn on some lights. We'll proceed to land, and then we'll go after some more targets. As we can see, steer point Bravo is basically taking us right over the top of our runway, and the marker itself is where the aircraft started. Which was right there. They're somewhat fast. Let's go ahead and slow it on down. .250 gear and flaps. Speed brake coming in. Don't think we're going to quite recover this one. We'll see how it does. Yeah, no, we should be fine. Recover, I more meant coming into land.
Low altitude. Low altitude.
Nope, that ain't going to do it. We've already lost too much runway on that one to aero brake it and slow it down. We'll just leave her dirtied up. And come back around. Generally speaking, I tend to do the same thing I do for most Air Force aircraft. I try not to drop the gear below, above 250. And while the flaps are a little more forgiving in the F-15E, I try not to drop those above 225. Similar to the F4, my approach speed tends to be around 200 knots. Aiming for a touch speed is somewhere between 160 and 180, depending upon load, fuel state. Lower the fuel state, lower the landing speed, because otherwise you'll float. Aero braking, however, is the order of the day, which does mean a lot longer of a rollout, especially compared to aircraft that have drogue chutes or big old wing slats. And depending upon... Thank you, Frost. Appreciate that. Depending upon how much room you have on a given runway, you'll want to make sure that you land, as close to the proper landing spot as possible, and at a speed that is controllable but as slow as you can make it. There is a vertical speed indicator that you can see below the altimeter there on the right-hand side. I try to make touchdown 500 feet per minute or less. With an ideal goal of touching down at about 80 feet per minute if I can manage it. It's the lightest kiss of the wheels on the pavement. Just adjusting that flight path marker where I want the wheels to touch down.
Low altitude. Low altitude.
Speed brake coming out. Wheels have touched down, holding the nose up. Brake is still out, flaps are still down. Full brake pressure, full aft stick. That's to get those vertical stabilizers there acting as high drag devices. And since we've got a taxiway right here, we'll just go ahead and use that high gain. Clean the aircraft up. And taxi off. been a good one so far for us. Appreciate that. Spot a pavement over here that we'll use as kind of an RMD arm that's a little out of the way. And single player, so there's literally nobody else here but me, but try not to get into bad habits where you can help it. Find good places to be out of the way as a taxiway, especially if you're in an aircraft where it's going to take it a long minute to get rearmed and refueled. Just still have quite a few aircraft up, so I'm going to go ahead and continue bringing a couple of Sparrows there. But before I get the rearm going, let's see where we're going to go next. We do have another SA-2 site that's up and in play. Ooh. Are you really here? Oh, you are. All right. All right, we're going to go after the SA-5 site. And I think this time we will make use of some smart weapons. Because we can. Yeah, we'll go with that. Not going to put a full tank back in the jet. That would take forever.
Request refueling. Request rearming. Copy.
But let's go ahead and make a waypoint 4. 4 Alpha. North. 5-2. 5-8. 5-1-2. 0, 1, 3, 3, 0, 5, 9, 242 feet. And we're going to target the other one, the other hill here. That an attack waypoint as well. All right, so some of what I'm doing here with the jet, because we can carry internally with the CFTs upwards of 22,000 pounds of gas, which is more than a lot of aircraft carry with all their bags on. Keeping in mind that the primary flight profile of this aircraft is low and fast, which is very, very high for fuel consumption. As far as we're going, I am doing about half a tank of gas. And then putting 2 bags back on, which should transfer to the internal tanks and fill those up as we're flying as soon as we have weight off the wheels, which is why I'm not going for a full tank of gas. We should be plenty fine with what we'll have on board.
Rearming complete.
Yeah, 19,200 pounds with currently 12 out of 13,000 pounds internal. Now, our smart weapons self-identified, but our GBU-10, as we talked about much earlier in the stream, did not. So we're going to go ahead and do that for it by going back into the PAX main screen, rear to ground load, step through till we find GBU-10, and assign it to the pylon. We're going to go ahead and direct ripple single for program 1, which is going to be our smart weapons. Program 2 will just be our GPU. Now, because I've made attack waypoints, since we know where exactly we're going, we can, first off, go ahead and program a smart weapons page. Now, up here it says transfer radar because we did have a target in the memory bank that was a radar target. We're not going to worry about that. What we're going to do first is go into air to ground master mode. We're going to hit 4 decimal. And now it says XSP FETRL. I don't know exactly what the acronym stands for there for us, but broadly speaking, what it means is that I'm using the waypoint to designate the target. Next station will, of course, move us to the different weapons on that pylon. And we're going to queue up the front bomb for steer point 4 decimal. So now it says sequence point 4 decimal, standby. This weapon is now going to drop on the GPS coordinates at the elevation that we have told it what we're going to do. We can go 5 decimal. Next station. We'll drop the middle one. No, we'll drop the aftmost one, I think. Transfer. Sequence point 5. These bombs are now queued up and ready to go for those 2 waypoints, which is the power of smart weapons, because at this point, what it means is I can go, I don't have to look at that page anymore. Go back to navigation mode, take the park and brake off. And because these are GPS guided bombs, the only thing we have to do is get in good parameters and let them go. These targets are close enough together that if one is in range, the other is also in range. But we're going to make sure that we hit both of those track radars for the SA-5. This does come back to a lot of things that I've taught over the many months now that I've been doing this. That it is important to know your system. Know where it's strong, know where it's weak. It applies as much to the enemy as it does to you. So some of the things that are common to all what they call single-digit SAM systems, SA2, SA5, that kind of deal. Broadly speaking, they use older technology. They're older generational systems. Some of them can engage more than one target at a time. Some of them have some very long lock-to-launch times. The SA5 is really kind of a big-scale, like theater-wide type problem. A single SA5 site can really lock down a large amount of airspace because that missile, S-200 in the Russian designation system, has a lot of range, and it's very fast. So as long as you are up where the missiles and the radars can see you, they can send that thing to you from a long ways off and really lock down an airspace and force aircraft to fly low, which is why you get aircraft like the F-111 or the F-15E or the Panvara Tornado. All of those interdictors have a lot of things in common. They're designed to fly pretty much at deck level, bring in a heavy load, and through toss bombing and other means and measures, put those weapons on target without climbing high enough to get seen by these radar systems. The SA-5 also has a very wide minimum engagement zone. So once we get inside that, we more or less have free reign until we start climbing really stupid high. Then he can get us. But for our purposes, as long as we can maintain not getting shot, not being seen by it on the way in, we should be able to push all the way up into its face and put these bombs right on the target. SA-2 is very similar, which is something that we saw. It did lock at us, and it did shoot at us a few times while we were engaging the target system. But we were able to fall down below its minimum engagement altitude and put clutter between us and it. And once we broke contact with the radar, they're all semi-active radar homing. They don't have terminal guidance of their own, thank goodness. So once it failed to see us, that was kind of it. It was done. We can see our internal fuel tank is refilling again as it pumps the gas from the external tanks that we're carrying, bypassing the CFTs and putting it straight into the aircraft's fuel tank. We can also toggle the switch around to see how much gas is in those external tanks. And we've got basically 4,800 pounds in both wing tanks. In the bags, rather. All right, let's go ahead and turn lights out. And we'll begin our low-level penetration for 100 miles in the fog. And one of the things that we do, or can do, with this aircraft is use terrain following radar.
Overlord 1-1, Bra 073, at 13,000 knots.
I'm going to go and turn the system on. We'll set it to hard. Very low clearance, 100 feet. And using our, is it the right multifunction switch? No, it's the paddle switch. Using the paddle switch, we'll engage the system. And at this point, I am completely hands-free with the aircraft. I'll make some throttle adjustments here. But as we can see on the HUD, we have our flight path marker and a cross, which tells us the altitude that we told the computer system to fly at, and the heading. I'm in autopilot mode, nav terrain following. And the little waterfall demon that we see here is a logarithmic scale of the terrain in front of the nose of the aircraft. It's a technology that we've had since about the 60s. There's some good periscopes, films, videos that you can catch on YouTube about the F-111's terrain following radar system. It operates on basically the same sort of way.
435 at 3,000 knots.
050 for 35.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 071, 450 at 14,000 knots.
I believe that's one of the air intercept missions that's up for a large transport. I'm not going to worry too much about that. As we're doing an attack on an SA-5, that's a little more important for us at the moment.
Bra 041, 435 at 3,000 knots.
But while the aircraft is flying itself, it's allowing me to play with the sensors, look at stuff. And despite the fact that I've got practically no visibility down here due to the fog and the clouds and the weather and the rain, the aircraft knows where it is, and it is even pitching up to avoid things like these power lines. And then pitching back down again to maintain 100 feet vertical clearance, which is what I've asked for. VLC mode is very low clearance. You can use that to set an automatic altitude other than 2, 3, 4, 5, or 1,000 feet. I really want to make sure that we're staying low so that we avoid being detected by that SA-5. Because while we are 75 miles away, he could, in theory, shoot us at this distance. As Ihort was saying, the bad things about him, he's got very long arms. He can reach out and touch you from a very long way away. The good thing about it, though, is that because he can reach out and touch you from a very long way away, he is very crap up close. And if he does shoot you from a long distance, you have plenty of time, provided you actually defend yourself, to kinetically or otherwise put terrain between you and the target missile without having to expend countermeasures to defend yourself. All you have to do is break radar contact and they will self-destruct the missile. We do have nails for MiG-19s. Which is probably, yep, there they are, MiG-19. We'll pay attention to him for a minute and see what he does. Somewhere between 400 and 500 knots is about where you want to be for the terrain following radar. Too slow in that regard, and you'll end up probably not having the power to climb out of problems. And too fast, you won't be able to, the system rather, won't be able to respond fast enough to deal with those kinds of problems. That said, though, we can pop outside the aircraft and enjoy the view. $60 miles to go. The computer is estimating about 7 minutes until we're over the top of the target. It'll be a little bit less than that for us to be able to release. Still 16,000 pounds on board the aircraft, still sipping it out of the tank, so we'll keep those on board. And we'll take the time, though, to verify that combat jettison is still set, and it is not, so let's go ahead and set that now. Mr. MiG-19 has ventured away and is not a factor at the moment. We're probably too low for either his radars. The only radar we have that's tracking us right now is our own E-3 Sentry. So they are not communicating with one another to tell them that an F-15E is on their way to go blow up their damn base. You can almost look out there and see the Arma 3 being fought. Oh, he's back. We're off for 9 o'clock here somewhere.
Overlord 1-1, Uzi 1, request bogey dope. Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 0
Oh, we're cooking much faster than he is.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1.
Won't be a problem going in, but he might be one coming out.
60 at 4,000 cold. Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1. Bra 001 for 23 at 14,000 knots.
Yeah, he's out here somewhere. .38 miles. Still on the TF radar. One of the safety features that terrain following radar has is if you go out of parameters for whatever reason, if it can no longer detect the ground, if you maneuver outside of these carets that you see here on the bottom, that's your maneuvering limits for the aircraft at this airspeed and altitude. It will bong bong at you a couple of times and then pull the aircraft into the vertical, like 30, 40 degrees. Because if you're down deep and low, the only safe direction as far as the system is concerned to avoid hitting the ground, which is the only thing it's concerned with, is up. Adjust some of the brightness here on our displays as the sun is continuing to go down. 29 miles. Air-to-ground master mode is up. I'm going to pause again here for a minute. We haven't done that so for a second, but we have symbology to look at. Right now, we're going to be dropping smart weapons. So what we have up here in the box is the heading tape for the center line and a box. That box is the direction that we need to be facing, so we need to be anywhere inside this box in order to employ the weapons and have them have a hope in hell of getting to where they need to go. But we have a lot of wiggle room. Over here on the right, it's estimating that in about 3 minutes we'll be throwing bombs. Again, that assumes that we are down here at this altitude, going this airspeed. We're going to pick the nose up probably somewhere between 7 and 10 miles. And we should be in good parameters and can let the bombs go at that time. This carrot here, just like everything else for air-to-air missiles for like the F-pole or for a lot of the other bombs and everything else, tells us when we are in parameters. Anywhere inside the bracket is good. And if we are on center line for our heading tape and at the very edge of the bracket, we are considered to be in the zone, which would still be effective for hitting the target, but you run the risk of any maneuvering at all and you might throw the bomb off. So I generally tend to wait until I'm just past this tick, which is the in-range marker. All right, let's go ahead and unpause and we'll continue on our journey.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1. Bra 337 470 at 11,000 cold.
There's an early warning radar that's tracked us for a minute and an SA-2 radar that's tracked us out the other direction. Tells me I'm going to want to brake right after dropping the bombs. Make sure we don't accidentally fly into its reach. Not actively tracking us yet. It's not beep-booping at us. Our low altitude cruise has been very good to us so far. Do a quick scan of the sky here. Okay, so we can track something AWACS didn't. Okay, 19 miles. I'm going to go ahead and take it out of coupled mode and put the radar back to standby. So we are now hands-on again. Sub 15 miles, opening the throttles up. Mudspike SA-6, definitely turning right after dropping bombs.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1. Bra 331 480
SA6 is a little quicker on the draw than some of these other systems.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 311, 435 at 13,000, cold.
Up we go. Master caution came on for the autopilot. In zone. Pickle pair. Trying hard not to over G the aircraft, brakes coming out. Try and get us a little bit of turn. I had to guess that SA6 side is probably up here defending that armored group. The SA2 side is up here by Whitstock. Let's see about knocking that SA2 side out. Quickly encode another waypoint.
Overlord 1-1, Bra 323, 445 at 13,000, cold.
Terrain following system is armed and engaged. Well, we have 6 decimal up. Queue up our next bomb. This time we definitely have friends. Let's see what we can do about them.
Overlord 1-1, Bra 337, 435 at 13,000 knots. Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 357.
KC-135, that's our tankers. That's probably the AWACS then. It's holding us at our absolute constraint limits there. Try and back off the throttle. If we can't get a slightly tighter turn out of it, as it's trying to do it all at 100 feet. We can also temporarily disable the system. Put our nose on. Given that we are 20 miles out already, that's what we're going to do. Airspeed's low. Pick the knots back up. Radar's looking at the ground. That's less than helpful. Let's pick that up.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 341, 427 at 14,000 knots. Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, pop-up group 004, 480 at 3,000 knots.
It's a MiG-19. Let's fight the race. TF to standby. Air-to-ground master arm is up.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 003, 470 at 2,000 knots.
That's good. Pickle. Air-to-air master mode. Fox 1.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 326, 48 at 12,000 knots. Uzi 1,
Come on, Sparrow.
1-1, pop-up group
I mostly believe in you.
460 at 1,500 knots. Uzi
He might have gotten out of it.
1, merged.
And we just merged with his friend.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra
Fox 1.
0450 at 1,500 knots.
Warning, fuel low. Warning, fuel low.
Fox 2. Oh, not into the sun, buddy. Alright. Let's just get away from him and go home.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 15544 at 10,000.
Just break that engagement.
Pull up, pull up.
Warning, fuel low. Warning, fuel low.
I do believe he shot at us. "68 miles. At least we all the way home. £5,000, 13,000 pounds per hour. Well, 26,000 pounds per hour. I think we managed to avoid the blast frag on a little missile that he flung at us. Mostly by going fast.
Uzi 1, Overlord 1-1, Bra 080, 423 at 19,000 cold.
Go ahead and get a little bit of altitude here so we can cruise back with a little bit better safety. I love this jet. I love this jet, and I need RASBAM to give it a good update once RASBAM's been paid properly, has been ordered by the courts, by ED. Hands down my favorite plane in the entire arsenal. And while you do about 70% of the work as a single pilot, if you get really good, you can probably push that to 75 or 80. She really does come into her own when you got a good multi-crew working. Somebody who can manipulate frozen radar images while the pilot is searching for air contacts, the extra set of eyes, the human factor, setting up all the bombs and everything else for where they need to go. Although if you make your Wizzo refuel the jet for you, I'm going to laugh at you until the end of time. As is justly deserved. There's duplicate flight controls in the back seat. It is not for the Wizzo to refuel the aircraft. But yeah, multi-crew is, the only unfortunate part about it is that multi-crew is probably the first thing, given the lack of updates in the last year for the jet, that is probably a little scuffed. Alright, we're 37 miles away and drawing a much more conservative fuel flow, so we are definitely going to make it home fine.
Bingo, fuel. Bingo, fuel.
Thank you, Betty. Put it in altitude hold mode. And do a little inspection, because there was definitely a flash of light and a little bit of a puff and rattle. But we are none the worse for wear. Not trailing any fluids. Don't see any damage to the aft end of the aircraft. I think we managed to outrace the blast fragmentation of that warhead. Alright, let's go ahead and go weapons safe. Turn the lights on. We'll put her back down on the deck. And then we will take a tac view break and reassess our flight for today. It'll probably be time for some final notes covering the lesson for today on the systems and everything that we've utilized. And then we should be good to go. Some of the things that I love about this aircraft is its ability to very quickly and very rapidly transition between I threw a bomb at a target, and because I already had you locked up with the air-to-air radar, I'm just going to go ahead and pivot on over, switch to STT mode, and throw a Sparrow at you. Immense power in the platform. Even a year's worth of not having any updates for it, I would call it for one of the most frightening aircraft to go up against, and one of the most powerful to get in and do the work on your side. She can fight high, she can fight low. She retains all of the dangerous threat levels of her single-seat air superiority sisters, paired to the lethality of an interdictor that was built from the ground up to do that job. Rebuilt, I should say. Alright, we're 4 miles away from the airbase. We should have been descending already, but go ahead and pop the speed brake out and make our way down. Powerful radar systems really allows for true all-weather combat. She's spectacular to fight with in the dark. Spectacular to fight in the fog. Actually, it looks like we'll be landing in some pretty dense fog too. Okay, see what the orientation of our runway is. That's the taxiway. The active is this direction. We'll need to turn back around for it. That's the actual active is going back the other way. And we're on the downwind leg. I would say conservatively that visibility is maybe 2 miles. Gear and flaps. The runway lights. A little quick, I'm going to pop the brake out early.
Low altitude. Low altitude.
Gentle kiss on the runway. Full stick, full brakes, full flaps, full beers at the Yo Club. See a little bit of that parallax I was talking about with the display versus where the reality of everything is. As that pylon is slightly low and slightly right, so everything is offset slightly high and slightly left. We'll go ahead and reverse and put her around in that proper spot there, right where we took off from.
Copy.
Do a little bit of the reverse procedure here.
Low altitude. Low altitude.
In the event of a failure to start, or if you need to air restart the engines, you've already used one charge when you first start the jet by just pulling this handle. You can right-click it to turn it to the side to activate the second charge to try and restart your motors. That turns the jet fuel starter back on, and then you can go through the same reignite procedure to get the jet going again. With that, though, let's go ahead and get in from the rain and take a look at the TAC view. All right, let's go and flip that over there. Here we go. We get to see what that flogger did too. All right, so TAC view, the same blurb that I kind of give every time we talk about this one, but it's worth blurbing. TAC view is a third-party program that allows you to accept telemetry data from certain games that it is interfaced with, and convert that into a 3D model that you can see. As I understand, one of the new Cold War single-player C games is integrating with TAC view as well. Forget the name of that one now. That's bad of me. I'll see if it'll. Arma, really? Okay, fair. If I can actually get TAC view for Arma, that might be interesting to look at from time to time. Anyway, it integrates with several games that will accept telemetry information from these games. And yeah, C-Power. C-Power is the one that they're doing some integration with here in the near future. That you can actually take that information and pile it all together and really see it in something that you can play with, manipulate, go back and forth on, and really assess what happened. It's kind of a better way than sitting down with everybody around the table over a couple of beers, pointing at everybody's watches, and figuring out what happened and who was where and what they were doing and all that. You know, it's really hard to high a high off-bore sight AIM-9 shot that was really straight down the center that took out a friend when TAC view is concerned. The butterfly effect is really strong on that one. But let's go ahead and run through our flight. We sat down, we talked about things for about 15-20 minutes, going over starting up the jet, various systems, getting it ready for fighting. And then we took off and proceeded towards our engagement area. And we do have some friends that were up. Pairs of MiG-19s, and somewhere at some point a MiG-23 appears. At this point, we were using the radar to go ahead and identify our SAM site. Shot our first Sparrow. Killed him. His friend was in the neighborhood, but we went ahead and just left. He went back to his patrol station and bar cap station as we got out of the zone. He came back in when we did and paid the price. Here he is. This is our friend. There were two of them, but only one of them came off to come play. Yeah, no, he there were three of them. I'm gonna have to take a look at that there for him. Oh, okay, no, it's two separate groups. I think this used to be the MiG-29 spawn, but that was overkill for the third-gen fighters that this mission is primarily geared towards. All right, so he came out after us, fired a missile. 24 alerted us to its presence. We threw out countermeasures and just left. And Mr. Look Down, Shoot Down couldn't find us. Did the same with his second missile. Oh, okay, all right. He shot two missiles at us, dove down. I presume he lost the ground in the fog and did not have the G load on the jet to pull out of it. So he just committed CFIT. He fired two missiles at us and then just threw himself into the ground. Here I am looking for a corpse. And decide, okay, if he's gone, I will just come up here and throw bombs. And wow, all right, we killed all the missiles in that site too. And a couple of the rearming trucks, so that site is dead. And with the SA-2 out of the picture, and no immediate cap coverage coming out to investigate us, came by to use the GBU-10, which was going after a bunker. Destroyed it. Knew that there was an SA-8 down there, so we picked him out. Turned out a little bit, lined ourselves up. Bomb came off the wing. And we dropped this. He doesn't have a whole lot out in the way of hatches, but more or less right down his throat. Using nothing but the radar for designation, because I was not able to see him with the targeting pod due to the thick clouds and rain. Came back, landed. Rearmed, refit. We got some smarter weapons this time. And we are going after the SA-5. Really not attacked by anything else, mostly because the MiG-23s have gone home. This aircraft flies low altitude more or less the whole way through. It's just a transport to intercept, which can spawn at random in this mission. Utilizing our smart weapons that we designated all the way back on the runway. Pitched up and threw them out. Bing bong. Both track radars destroyed, site effectively neutralized. Could they wheel up another track radar and reactivate that site? Sure. If I was doing this with more than one person, would their task be to come in and sprinkle canister rounds and everything else just all over the middle of all this? Absolutely. But for our purposes, that site is done. At this point, we targeted the other SA-2 site with our third bomb. Bomb comes off the wing, no longer needs any guidance from me. I already had one member of this team locked up. However, they do the same technique that I did and just turned and ran from it, opened up the range. That said, he is on the defensive entirely. Manages to get away from that Sparrow. Sidewinder fails to guide. And when he snaps off to leave, I simply opt to floor it, as I can easily, more or less, outrun MiG-19. However, I do get that fuel low. I don't know what that thump was. I heard a thump like an explosion. But it's very obvious that he both was not in position or range to hit me. So let's talk about this. We'll talk about this defensive maneuver, because this is basically engaging and then immediately escaping and disengaging from the fight. He is doing Mach 0.76 here in this turn, flying completely 90 degrees out the wrong direction. I am just going to roll level and begin to leave. Now, he has to turn around to try and catch me, to put nose on target. I'm doing over the speed of sound down on the deck. He's doing half the speed of sound, roughly. So I'm already 1.6 miles away and cold. None of the missiles in anybody's arsenal is going to have the overtake speed at this altitude to come get me. The only ones that might potentially be able to do something like that are going to be like our 27ER, because it's got a little bit longer range, possibly an R-77, possibly an AMRAAM, as I am only a mile out. And I'm not going to be able to maintain Mach 1.13 for very long without running the risk of fuel starving my jet. So I will have to throttle back a little bit. However, since I am opening up the range, even if he were to have shot the missile as soon as he put the nose on the target, as soon as he gets to about here, lets it go, the missile would start to overtake me flying at about Mach 2.5. And as the motor burned out, would just fall behind me. And, maybe it was this bomb going off. Yeah, that's probably what that flash was. I was technically armed when I eject the pylons. But it was far enough back behind me that all it did was make a flash. 3 nautical miles, still opening up. And I'm down to just about Mach 1. Just cruising and screaming. The big thing to understand about missiles and how to defeat them, and that technique and everything else involved, is rooted around the missile has to intercept you at some point in the air, which means it always has to fly out in front of your aircraft. If you are straight line burning away from the target, much like I am right now and much like I did earlier, while it does put you in a very bad position to turn around and re-engage, assuming you have a wingman and they are chasing after you, desperately trying to hang on to that lock, they are in a good position to be able to pounce the target behind you, while you are effectively making the missile have to work so much harder to a point where it is impossible for it to catch you by flying away from it. The intercept point is so far out in front that it just does not have the energy to reach that place anymore, and it will eventually stall out and fall. He gets to the point where he is at the limits of his patrol area, and he goes back home. At this point, if I was a little more fuel desperate, I would have gotten and hooked up to the tanker. But we were close enough to the base that we just came back in and parked it right where we took off. Covered a lot of things in the jet today. Really kind of ran through the full suite of what the F-15 is capable of doing, and talked about setting up those systems and getting them in use and employed. We guided a laser-guided bomb onto a target. We designated with waypoints a position for smart weapons to get in and do the job. Successfully engaged aircraft with Sparrows. We got into several fights while getting into the zone. Pushing in as an F-15 is ought to do down at low altitude and usually alone or in pairs to get in and try and get that job going. Got bombs off the jet, quickly engaged other aircraft, kept ourselves more or less safe for the entirety of the flight today. Very good trip, very powerful trip. With that, let's go ahead and roll into the end credits before I have to do a little bit of mission editing and make a trip out to pick up some things for the upcoming week, which will be important for you guys here, as it is for me. And we have our upcoming events there. This was Saturday, which is Pilum Teaches DCS. Our next thing that we have coming up is going to be DCS and Classic Games on Monday. So we'll be spending some time probably with Mander, Horton, Trigger, maybe Chief and some of the other boys if they are able to get on for that time frame there at 6. And continuing on with the Blood Moon expansion and try and finish some of that off for Morrowind for our Classic Games time. Arma 3 is on the menu there for Friday, doing the in-pass game mode, which is always a good time here so far. But coming up on 14 July, I will be doing a 12-hour stream in celebration of Happy Birthday Fun Times, which is going to start at noon on 14 July and run through midnight, the morning of the 15th. And we'll be looking to do probably mostly Gray Zone and DCS for that, probably about 6-hour blocks each, give or take. So hopefully we can scrounge up some of the boys there to fly Monday night at our usual Pilum DCS time. And a little bit later. I know some of the boys don't get on until like 7:30 or so that's always helpful. And then we will be pushing DCS into the evening. We'll see if we can load up one of the missions, maybe Rheinstrike or something, and really kind of push that one all the way through to its conclusion in the time frame that we got. Should be a good time. With that, folks, always ask for consent. Try to communicate as best you can with your partners. Try to be genuinely decent human beings. And I will catch up with you later on. Thanks for watching, folks. Have a good day.